Welcome to Carter's Country Club. This is episode one, A Call to Right Action, part four. Hey, so thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to parts one, two, and three at this point. And I'm really grateful you're here. If you listened to everything so far, I hope you're seeing the vision. I hope you're able to envision what we call Carter's Country Club. And yeah, I just want to keep moving along. So, again, I'll see you on the other side. But I want to keep sharing these slides. And we still have, I don't know, like 190 to go. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, I'll keep moving. All right. So many, many years ago, as I mentioned, I worked with a good friend of mine to start to create our first trainings that were kind of this hybrid between transformation and movement, and really bringing community together. And some of the people that you see pictured here are still the same people that I envision being a part of Carter's Country Club. Some of them I don't know would jump on board for Carter's Country Club. Some of them I know I would call them and they would be there in a second. Some of them are definitely going to share different beliefs about the world than I do, but I think that's okay. But these people that I have valued for my entire adult life have really formed, who I am. And so, yeah, I mean, we have been some of these people, and then some people that aren't even in this picture, have been envisioning this physical place for a long time. I mean, I started to talk about a center when I was in high school, right back to what I shared in part three about like my mentor through my teens. Um, my friends and I were talking about it then. Sometimes I would see it as a retreat center. As I really started to identify as an athlete, I saw it as an athletic training complex. We saw it as a healing center. We saw it as a space of transformation. Um, we even, some of us and some of the people pictured here, talked about orphans. Maybe not in the sense of how I view the orphan trains now and how I view perhaps, the repopulation of our realm, but we were thinking about making a difference in that way. So anyway, I want to keep moving forward. So as I moved online and as I took Beyond Movement online, I did a series of podcasts, which again, all of that content has been removed. But I've been in the process of going back to it and figuring out how do I share some of that. I mean, my beliefs may have changed. Maybe some of these people's beliefs have changed. But we had some really cool conversations in the five rounds of Beyond Movement. I envisioned Beyond Movement as a year-long program, and we were looking at metaphysical principles and aligning that with movement and all kinds of things. So, like I said, sometimes I look at these images and some of these people are no longer in my life. Um, and it's really because they chose out of my life. I said that when I was younger, that, like I kind of choose people for life. And I think that I've always had the same vision. But in 2020, people kind of put their stuff on me and kind of thought that I was this terrible person because I didn't go along with the narrative. And maybe if you're listening to this, maybe that's like you. Or maybe you're one of those people that, kind of chose out of my life, and maybe you're seeing things differently. Maybe you no longer see the world as the Hegelian dialectic that we're given, right? Maybe it's not, these two choices that, the mainstream narrative gives us. Maybe there's more going on than that. But like I said, this was my world for a really long time, and I really miss that world. I really, especially, when, the only way that you could go into a studio was to wear a mask. I searched and searched and searched for places that I could be. And sometimes I would think that I had found a place, and then they would, kind of stand up for a little bit, but then they would cowtail and go along with it. So I hold, I share these old images because I still see that space that is for everyone, that nobody's going to ask you to cover your face. Nobody's going to ask you to not be able to breathe. And maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, that is over. I don't think that it's over because my son's in this play right now, and, they literally said they can hold the rights to enforce masks mandates and, force COVID test. I have never taken a COVID test. I will never take a COVID test. And I never put a mask on my child. I'll tell you a little bit about where I chose to wear a mask. Um, but again, that it was never in the space of movement. I refused. I would not do it in that way. I would not be inauthentic. um yeah. And again, I'm sharing these images because I want to kind of dig into, um you know, who I was, why I left Los Angeles. This was the last workshop series that I taught or co-taught with some of those human beings in those pictures in LA before we left. And I still feel strongly about integrating these practices together. And I'm still longing for community. Maybe you are too. So maybe that's why you're listening to this. And I don't really want us just to practice together over Zoom or over some platform. I want to be with you in person. I first took my first group. I took group fitness for the first time when I was in the it was either first or second grade, right? It was called Heart Light Aerobics. And I came home and I told my mom I was the best at the cool down, which she kind of thought was funny because she thought, like, oh my gosh, my daughter can only move slow. Like, she's this slow mover and she's the best at like the relaxing part. But it's kind of true. It's kind of who I am. I'm still like, even in dance, I'm still like in ballet, like the adagio, the slow part is where I thrive. And I used to get kind of made fun of for that. People would get frustrated with my classes because I wanted everybody to slow down. I wanted them to feel it. And so in 2015, again, I want to kind of go back, right? This is 10 years ago. While teaching my own work, I began to feel that it was lacking dance and connection to rhythm. My Again, I haven't totally edited this, so my apologies. My classes were in a university setting where the best received. I felt more people were grasping the full depth of truth and somatics, but later I would learn I was wrong. I thought my students were peers, that they wanted to learn, that and it was such a stark contrast of the purely fitness focused individuals in most gym. This is why I chose to go back to college to study dance. I knew that people needed more than what yoga was offering them. I was accepted into a program at Appalachian State, but I thought that choosing to continue my studies back at Western Kentucky University, where I had began in 2000, because I took classes in high school. um, I I thought that was the best place for me. I had spent years frustrated at the beliefs of so many yoga studios, gyms, as well as online. I thought I could break free of this dogma. 2020 made it very clear that most wanted to remain ignorant. The New Age movement had brainwashing down. Most people had even missed the basic tenets of breath, much less the deeper esoteric wisdom in many somatic practices. At the time, I was deep in this twin flame work, and it had really influenced my choice in moving to Bowling Green. Again, more about that for another time. In 2016, I made the right choice after many years of very wrong choices. So I want to pause here. And again, I want to remind you, if you're listening to this, this is not for children. I marked that on here. I said it in episode 1, but I want to be really clear again that this is not for children. And this is also not for my family members, okay? Because I don't need any more things than I've already experienced. In 2019, because of my son's vaccine status, we were not welcome at the last Lashbrook Christmas that would be on my grandmother's farm. Um, and yeah, you can hear the emotion in my voice. That was really intense for me. And so I want to be really clear that, you know, that I'm not here to get into, too much of my son's story. He's here to tell his own story. But what I want to share is my own story, and that I made terrible choices many times in my life. And I want to save that for its own episode. Um, but I didn't make that choice in 2016. I chose to have him. And I had this amazing community around me, which is in that upper right hand corner. This birth network that no longer really exists here the way that it does, but I'm still connected to some of these families. And you know, like I said, I made different choices, and I was very clear um, that I was not going to vaccinate my child. I was very clear that I was not going to alter his body. Again, those are things for Carter to share in his own time. But I want to make sure that children like him are always welcome. And in 2020, people were nasty and disgusting to us. And like I said, he had already been excluded from a family Christmas. I don't know which family member informed my grandmother's decision. I still don't know who that was, but I know that they didn't want him, that they felt that he was like this diseased child, and he isn't. He's actually been incredibly well his entire life. Um, so, yeah, good quote. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. John Lennon. I had avoided having children, had avoided that conversation for all the reasons. And like I said, I'll get into more of that on a different episode. But this little dude changed everything for me. Um, but also, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this as we continue forward in this episode. But I didn't take these pictures. I wasn't there the first time he swam in a pool. You know, my dear friend Christian was with him because I was working. And that was a struggle that I would have for a long time. And I still, sort of struggle with that. But that's why I've sought to work with children so that I could have him with me. And we're constantly working to find places. You can probably hear Quartz moaning in the background. But we're working to find places where we can be together. Quartz needed to be with me, so he's sitting in my lap. And so, yeah, but Carter's love of the water started there with Christian. You only have control over three things in your life: the thoughts you think, the images you visualize, and the actions you take. So true. And again, the entire point of this presentation is about taking right action and choosing that regardless of what others think. And I did do that. Sometimes I would drag my feet like I've been doing with, getting online and making these presentations for you, for the person who's listening, so that we can figure out how to come together. But I have been visualizing this space for a long time, but I wasn't taking the action, right? So that's what I'm doing now. And I chose this image of my grandfather, one of my grandfathers. I called him Gum Buddy. He was really fortunate in that he passed away before COVID happened, so that he got to have the last years of his life where Carter could be in his life. He would kind of forget who I was, and but he never forgot Carter, which I think was really cool because, he could remember the current, and so Carter got to bring this joy to the assisted living where my grandfather was. And my mom didn't necessarily want to put him in assisted living, but physically she couldn't take care of him in the way that he needed. But my mom, anyway, I'm not going to tell Gumbody's story because it's not his to tell, or it's not mine to tell, it's his to tell. But I made very different choices for Carter. The upper right hand corner where you see Carter's like doing his little first little plank, you could see his little turned out feet because he was a ballet dancer even then. um, but I had the studio, and the address was 1111, believe it or not, where I first was able to kind of do this practice like I was envisioning it, where, the moms were there and the children were there. And I didn't like this model that I saw everywhere where it was like, okay, there's either children are doing a class and the moms are sedentary, or the parents are sedentary, or the parents are working out and the child is either in childcare or on a stupid tablet. We don't do tablets. And I used to say like, oh, no judgment if you're doing it, but I got to be honest now, like, if you're putting your child in front of a phone and a screen, you can do better. Okay, it's not necessary. And again, like I said, I'm going to make some harsh statements. The other thing here that again, uh, you know, I think it's not valuable for us to debate it, but I did not make the choice to raise my child without animal products. I did make the choice, that he didn't have grains for quite a few years, and he doesn't eat junk, and he's really healthy because of it. But again, I'm not judging your choice that you're making. I made very clear choices, and he gnawed on that rib bone for a very long time because, like I mentioned in previous parts of this episode, I believe we have to use the whole animal, and we are respectful of it. I spent the first years of Carter's life trying to find a way to keep teaching and have him cared for. I did not want him in daycare, so I made a bold choice, right? So, I tried a couple different daycares because I couldn't always have him with me. Now I've kind of found a way around it. This is a little advertisement from when we were teaching yoga on my friend at the time, my friend Casey June's farm. That's not an image from the farm. That's way more people than we had there. But it was a little promo. And so I was always trying to figure out, how do I have him with me? And what do I do? So the bold choice that I made is, he became a crag baby. And if you don't know what a crag is, it's an like an area where you climb, right? So it's the base of an area where you can rock climb. It doesn't have to necessarily be a big mountain. It could just be a rock face. In 2018, we spent long weekends in the Red River Gorge. I began to feel that life was better for my baby at the base of a crag. Carter and I eventually broke the kid carrying backpack. It was a combination of, in addition to climbing gear, snacks, and water, Carter added trucks. Frozen breast milk, bottles, and diapers filled all exterior pockets of the pack. It was held together with duct tape to the end of the season. Carter then moved back to being worn on the front in a Lilla baby carrier, and I began to carry a 75-liter pack on my back. This lasted until the summer of 2019 when Carter began to complete approach trails on his own, which we believe led to his strength and success in cross country that would be 5 years later. So again, this is where it comes in that I made a different choice, right? And at the time, I was really ridiculed for that choice, right? Like, oh, you're just choosing to rock climb and don't want to take care of your kid and whatever else. But Carter always wanted to be outside. I have other images and other, presentations where I talk about like how much he just wanted to be in the backyard. And it became easier to just go climbing, right? And because he was happy out there and I was able to move, and that it became this place that I was searching for, this place where we could both, move and be healthy. And it was like a return for me because I actually, was climbing more than I had since, I was in my early 20s. We all have natural rights. The ego has a need to be right. And this is why I listen to Mr. Wright. At first, it was my love for Justin and climbing that led the way. But then the words he spoke about being right by birth began to make more sense every day. In 2018, I chose to build a life with the three of us and to let go of some seriously limiting mind control beliefs that are beyond the scope of this episode. There is much to share about the conclusion of my years of living in the twin flame story. Choosing Justin as my partner and choosing him only is a story for another time. My intention in Carter's Country Club is about creating a community for our son. I do intend to share my journey to being a moral parent and wife in the future, but feel that would be better shared with both of us present. This first episode is a call to action, a call to right action. My beliefs and behavior leading up to making this choice would be an entire episode of its own. And so, with that said, um, I think I have time to keep moving forward. But I have mentioned in the previous episodes about donating to us. I only have this old headset right now. And, we made a choice to invest in better internet, and we've made a choice to invest in other things so that we could start to put this conversation about Carter's Country Club out there. But I'm not set up for both of us, much less all three of us, to be recorded with quality audio. So if you do choose to donate to Carter's Country Club, again, those links are in episode 1 and episode 3. I'm probably not going to do that again in episode 4 just because I want to keep moving forward. But if you choose to donate to us, audio and microphone setup for the three of us is definitely going to be the way to go so that you can hear all three of us share our story. But again, this is mostly my conversation and my call to right action. And if you can hear Quartz in the background, I'm sorry, but he is a very talkative, moaning Jack Russell Terrier. So, this is where I get into a little bit of Carter, and I have a longer presentation that's called Bikes, Buoys, and Ballet, that is more specifically about his movement journey. But I wanted to share this part, and maybe this is going to be a good place to pause. Um, but after this slide, but it's very truthful. So in 2018, I considered raising him neutral. Like I said, I was fully under a lot of mind control, and I had really been in a very interesting place for many years. You know, a lot of times I would joke that I was so left, I fell off the left coast. I gave an explanation at the beginning of my classes, then about the biological male and female pelvis. Then I listened, watched, and observed my son. Then my worldview expanded, and mind control became clear. Now I tell my swimmers, as I mentioned in a previous episode, that I am training strong boys and girls. There are no dogs allowed in the pool. Pun totally intended. Okay. So this is not the pink balance bike that Carter had. He had a different pink balance bike, and we did go through four balance bikes. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the bikes in the next episode. But I wanted to end this on the note to bring this back to natural rights or natural law or our creator's law, whatever you want to call it. But there is biological gender. And it was a long journey for me to accept my biological gender and the way that I express it. But I am very grateful that I was born in 1982 and not, 2002, because I really feel very deeply connected to trans people because had I been influenced by the media, I can guarantee you I would have been begging and first in line to alter my body. I would have been right with everybody. But Carter wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be here speaking to you if I had made different choices. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I really hope that I'm going to get the opportunity in my life to speak to more people in that community because I feel that I really get them. And I do not feel that pharmaceutical interventions or surgery is ever the solution. And I'm here to talk about a lot of solutions, but that's not one of them. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. And I'll see you in part 5.